Hi everyone, we have a book that I have not seen before whatsoever, and to prove it, it is actually in this plastic wrapping, which hasn't been opened yet, so this will be the first time I see it along with you guys. It's always interesting when there's plastic wrapping around a book, because that tells me that this is a special book in terms of its craftsmanship, or just a very high quality book. So we'll be taking a look at this the first time together. I wasn't able to see much of the inside from Amazon because I think they only had 7 images, so that's the most I could see. But here we go. We have the plastic wrapping off here. Yeah, you can just feel that it is a very high quality build of a book. It is a hardcover. It's got this nice gold accent gloss to it, and the front's actually quite glossy as well. Yeah, here we go. Voices of the Martyrs graphic novel anthology. I guess the dates here, AD 34 to AD 203, which would probably reference since Jesus ascended to heaven, that these clearly cover the followers of Jesus that died for their faith. Don't know who the artist is or the writer is. I guess so far what I understand, it seems like it's a team of them from this group called the Voice of the Martyrs. Here we go. Let's take a look at the front here and see what we got. And right away we have this. Okay, we have a magazine here that you can subscribe to. And when we turn in here, oh, look at that. Interesting. Kingstone. I did not see that coming. I did not see Kingstone's logo or art iris on the front or the back, so it'll be interesting what their contribution is. Okay, it looks like it's a collaboration. All right, interesting. And there we go. Art iris, editor Kelly Averis, and writer Ben Avery. And wow, yeah, as expected, a whole team of them, and rightfully so. This is a pretty thick book. Published, I guess, 2 editions, 2017, 2020. We're jumping into the Mars, and of course, like Kingstone likes to do, they like to start off with a timeline, both the biblical timeline and then also the world type events that happened outside of the Bible. And here we go. Let's start with Stephen. He was the very first martyr right at AD 34. I imagine this is going to just be a collage of many stories of the martyrs that passed away, killed for their faith. Going to be a short summary here. Yet this is definitely the art style that's reminiscent of the Kingstone Bible. And I think this is really cool because this definitely stands out from a lot of the comic book Bibles, because now this is focusing on a time and an era where I don't think any comic book Bible has done this, or any type of anime or manga that has focused specifically on people dying for their faith. I'm sure Stephen is being the very first one he's always mentioned, but this one is really taking a look at many of the martyrs. I'm going to guess this is clearly Stephen getting stoned to death, and doesn't take too many pages for this to happen. Like, we're now on page 19 and we're off to James. And we're off to Philip. So yeah, I guess we're probably expecting 10, maybe 8 to 16 pages per martyr. Yeah, just a few pages in, and now we're on to the next one. Matthew martyred AD 60. So yeah, lots of dialogue in this one. But interesting though, there is no, Kingstone usually always puts scripture references at the bottom. This one, there is none whatsoever. And yes, love that they have the full page ones, especially of a scene like this. This is incredible. Okay, this martyr is a much more longer story. And now we're on to James. James the Less. It doesn't really show James dying at all in this. Okay, it doesn't really show anything of James dying. It's just early tradition suggests he was beaten and stoned for preaching about Jesus, but we know how he lived in service to Jesus and to the one who sent Jesus. So since there's no eyewitness testimony of James dying, I guess they can't really show anything. So now we're on to John Mark, martyred AD 64. So let's see if they show how John Mark died. So we'll just flip over quickly here. The authorities wanted to be totally rid of me, including burning my body, but a great storm kept them from even being able to start a fire. Interesting. They buried him in Alexandria. From there, my earthly remains will be reunited with my spirit to serve Christ forever. Then I will run once more to him. Paul was an interesting one. Okay, here we go. Paul will probably take a good sizable amount of pages just because he got beaten and attacked and tortured many times before actually dying. But yeah, being stoned here. Gee. Oh, this is kind of cool. Different languages that they're speaking. I don't know if this was the speaking in tongues reference, but... And I'm really liking that they're shifting. If they're shifting a scene, they're shifting like also the color palette. Like you see this very red and purple type of color really establishes the mood and atmosphere of the scene. I think that's pretty cool. I think really that's a really clever use of its colors. Yeah, we are still in Paul this chapter, which makes complete sense. There's definitely some gorgeous visuals here. I wouldn't expect any less from Kingstone. Okay, now we're having some scripture references. Interesting. So we're at Peter. Well, this is cool that it's not just showing, and I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't expect them to just show how they died. They clearly are backtracking as to when, like, for example, we're on Peter right now, and we're clearly backtracking to the Bible of what happened to Peter, how he got to this point in time for him to be murdered. So that's kind of cool. But what's interesting is there's this chunk of pages here that are pure black, and that was for Paul, and it was the only, and so far it's the only chunk of pages that actually show scriptural reference. Why they go back to not showing them for the remainder, I don't know. That is an interesting choice. I'm sure there's clearly some logic behind it, but this will definitely, it's definitely not the size of one of those Kingstone massive volumes that we've looked at, but it is still a sizable book for anyone to enjoy. It's going to still be a lot of reading. Okay, and as you can see here, and what we obviously expected from a team of writers, or illustrators I should say, is, of course, we saw earlier what Jesus looked like from one rendition, and now we have different illustrators to show what this is what Jesus looked like in this one. So, and that's sort of what we sort of would have expected anyways from Kingstone, and with that large of a team, you're not going to put all the responsibility on one illustrator. So as you flip through these pages, you do see different illustrators contributing and different art styles, and that's probably the only way they can get these books out as fast as they can. And yeah, like here we go. Now you can completely sense a different shift in the art style. This is clearly a different illustrator, and look at this. This is now how Jesus is portrayed. Oh, Mary. Okay, date of death unknown. But this is the kind of art style I do like. I definitely like the sort of art style I've come to love from Marvel and DC Comics. It just more bright and colorful, and just the shading. It just looks like the colors pop out, and there's a lot of great texture involved. This is what I come to love, is this type of art style. So you're not always going to get it throughout this entire book, but this is probably my favorite. Yeah, so you're going to see a lot of scenes of Jesus dying on the cross in different ways, just because you're going through all these stories of martyrs who at one point were with Jesus or did see Jesus die. So yeah, you're going to see the crucifixion story, or at least the scenes of Jesus being hung on the cross several times throughout this book. So it's kind of cool that they re-show it and retell it in different unique ways, which is pretty awesome. It almost seems like for every martyr, there's just a different illustrator and artist assigned to it, because now, yeah, you can tell there's definitely now a shift in the art style once again. But yeah, you just can't go wrong with Kingstone. They, to me, are the gold standard of comic book Bible format in terms of how comprehensive they are. There's just nothing like it. There's definitely some really awesome alternatives, but in terms of covering as much of the Bible as possible, which is such an undertaking, Kingstone has done a very admirable and phenomenal job. I wonder if they're saving the 4 Gospels for the end. John, if I remember, yeah, he was exiled and basically spent the remainder of his life writing at the end, and he's the only one that actually died peacefully. Polycarp, that is a name I don't think I've heard before, but I'm sure it has been mentioned clearly. This would be an interesting chapter to read, actually, of Polycarp, and just really gruesome how each of them were killed. I would say this is still child-friendly, and that's sort of it. So we're at the end here. I am N. I guess that's another project for the Voice of the Martyrs. To this day, I guess you would say there are people dying for their faith today. So, but these are the earliest ones. So a very nice book, a very nice feel, and a very nice surprise that this was a team of not only the Voice of the Martyrs, but also the folks at Kingstone.